Before the path hardens, before the choice is made, stopping decision death in this high stakes trade. Welcome to the AI Momentum Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Our guest today is Rachel, an artist, a designer, and the co founder of Neogenesis, a visual branding agency built for creatives and misfit entrepreneurs who are ready to stop watering themselves down and finally own the weird online. Rachel specializes in high velocity, 1 week visual brand sprints that turn what makes a business different into an online presence that pops. But here's why she's on the podcast today. Rachel didn't want anything to do with AI. She was caught in the ultimate creative crossfire. Her artist friends saw AI as the devil's work, while her business peers wanted to use it to automate some human repetitive tasks. So she made a high stakes pivot and deeply integrated these tools into her workflows and discovered a massive truth. Ignoring AI isn't protecting your craft. It's actually a quiet momentum leak that creates serious decision death for your business. Hey Rachel, what's up?
Hey, how's it going? Thank you for having me here today.
Thank you for joining. Okay, let's get into it. When you started the company, you said your business partner was practically begging you to start using ChatGPT because it was a while ago, and you described the whole experience as like feeling like pulling teeth. So take me to that day when you were completely stuck. Your old workflow was probably a bit broken, and you finally realized, okay, you know what, something has to give here.
Oh, that was a very stressful day. And to give context, I operate a lean and mean agency where it's just me and my business partner who are operating it. So I do a lot of the client facing work, the day to day operations of the business, and my business partner is behind the scenes, basically upholding the backbone of our business with all of our systems, operations, upholding the internal architecture that actually makes our business a business. Otherwise, it would just be Rachel freelancing in a corner. Um, Knowing this, when my business partner, him being in charge of our tech stack and all of our R&D, when I told him, hey, I want you to put your effort in doing research into tools or anything that would make my job faster as the daily operator of this business. Whatever you discover, please bring it back and then help me integrate it into the day to day so then we could get work done faster. So that's the context where I explicitly asked for this change. Also, knowing that there were a lot of new tools that were just entering into the space at that time. This was before there were all of these other tools. At first, it was just ChatGPT. That was the main thing at that time. And I remember hearing about all of my business colleagues talking about it as if it was some really big magical thing. And I also remembered hearing on the other side a lot of my artist friends, I'd say, all of the creatives were extremely resistant to it. So I had all of these opinions about other people going on in my own head when that one fateful day my business partner he pulled me aside and he said, hey Rachel, guess what, I've started using ChatGPT. It is so incredibly helpful. I've already started using it for my personal fitness. I've already started to use it to provide strategy for some of the areas in our business that I don't know a whole lot about. I've started to use it for research and all of these other things. And I remembered that he told me, okay, just download it onto your computer and play around with it. He already knew from past experiences that I tend to be resistant to accepting new tools, even outside of AI, mostly because it takes a lot of extra time and energy outside of my day-to-day workflow, which is already pretty heavy, to learn the new tool, get past the clunky part when I'm just trying to figure out how it works, and then finding a way to incorporate it into what I'm already doing. So my resistance isn't that I don't want to learn, but it's because it just takes a lot of energy to figure it out. And as somebody who's already really busy all the time, it feels like extra work that doesn't have the immediate payoff. So when he told this to me, I was like, I don't have time for this. That was the only thought that went through my head. I do not have time for this right now. And of course he's like, yeah, but you told me. I'm like, yes, yes, yes. Let me just download it and I'll figure it out. I downloaded ChatGPT onto my computer and it sat there for a very long time. It took me a very long time before I even decided to open it up and test it out. I remember that was my first ever experience of using AI. So I didn't really know what to expect. I remembered a lot of my colleagues telling me about how cool it was that you could just speak to it as if it were a human and it would just know what to do with that. And I didn't have any experience with prompting. So I didn't know that there's a certain way that you're supposed to talk to it in order to yield specific results. So I remembered I went about using it in a very interesting way, almost as if I was getting to know someone better, because that's the only way that I've done things in the past. When I have do my networking virtual coffees, I ask questions, talk to it like it was a human. And I think my first question was like, hey, ChatGPT, I have never used AI before. This is my first time doing it, and I want to learn how to use you better. Can you please give me an overview so I can know where to begin? And that was like the first prompt, something along those lines, that I ever put in. And I'm very grateful that I did, because it already saved me a lot of work. But it took me a long time to get to that point, and it felt like it required a certain level of vulnerability, because I was being a beginner again, and I had to admit to it. I'm like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but I really want to learn how to use this. Like, I'm okay putting myself into that position where I'm just gonna have to be a sponge. I'm gonna absorb everything. I'm gonna be okay with making mistakes. Like, it required this weird level of vulnerability that I didn't anticipate, because it's just a business tool. That, or it doesn't have to be a business tool, but it's just a tool, but you talk to it like a human, which can bring up a lot of stuff. So I'll just stop here, but that's kind of the scene of when I first decided to dive in.
So you started with ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
You started using it, but for your projects itself, you said you mass migrated over to Claude. So when did you decide to pack up all of your client data and your thinking projects? And what did that transition look like? Because you obviously already had quite a rapport built with ChatGPT.
Yeah, what was interesting is that as I started using ChatGPT, I got really comfortable using it. I actually enjoyed the experience. Also, not knowing that there are a whole bunch of other tools that existed out there. So, as I was just getting started with ChatGPT, my business partner, of course, because he does his job well, he had been doing research and doing a lot of basically testing with other platforms. He was working with Claude and he was using Perplexity, and then there was Gemini, and then there was I think like there were other like AI browsers that he was testing. He was doing all of this testing and innovating on the side while I was just on training wheels with ChatGPT, figuring things out. And what was interesting is it's kind of like that feeling of only having dated one person. Like, that's kind of your only understanding of what the dating experience is like, of what a relationship is like. You only have the context from that one experience. So up until the my business partner introduced to me, hey, there are other AI tools out there that also have their different strengths and weaknesses. I remember when he brought that up, it caused me to go into overwhelm all over again. I remembered feeling frustrated because I was like, but I just freaking learned how to use this one thing. What do you mean I have to learn other things? I got mad again because I had I felt like I had just started to get the hang of using AI, of integrating it into my workflow, just for it to be potentially disrupted again, because suddenly there were a whole bunch of other similar tools that I needed to put my energy towards. So I remembered again feeling that next wave of resistance and being wondering, like, do I have to constantly be learning these tools while running my business? I want to just focus on doing a good job. And all of this constant wave of new stuff it felt like it was distracting and taking away from what my main area of focus was. And with ChatGPT, even though it was my only experience, I found that there were some limitations or some areas of frustration that I had with it, where when I would put in prompts, it would feel like the sometimes the answers, it was a little bit more basic, and I don't know if it was because I could have improved with my prompting or the instructions that I gave it in terms of how to respond. But I remembered, and I didn't notice this honestly until I migrated over to Claude, because the different AI responds differently to you. I didn't realize this at first. I thought this is how all AI talks, right? Like it's kind of like, if I were to equate the difference between talking to ChatGPT and Claude, which is my daily driver now, talking to ChatGPT feels like talking to that friend who doesn't have a lot of brain cells and just says yes to everything. They're just like, yes, even though what you said was just a bad idea. And they'll be like, yeah, go, girlfriend. Like, that's the thing. It's just that friend where, like, you hang out with them when you want to feel good, but not when you want to have a proper conversation and have like actual dialogue or back and forth. So that's the feeling that I had with contrast working with Claude. Claude, on the other hand, my business partner originally introduced it at a weird time. This was before all of the drama with Anthropic and the US government, before all of that drama happened. My business partner and I, we were actually in the process of revamping our website, and we were looking to find a quick way to help us with revamping a lot of the copy on our site. Now, ChatGPT, it has a certain tone of voice or way of handling copy that has always felt plasticky. I never really liked using ChatGPT for anything copy related, but that was my only experience. On the side, my business partner was actually testing Claude and using it to basically help us with revamping or tweaking some of the copy on our website. And he actually said that it was incredible at specifically that side of things. And so he proposed, hey, why don't we switch everything over to Claude? Shortly after, I think it was around like a few weeks later, he basically told me to download Claude and told me to test it again. And then suddenly I had both ChatGPT, which I was familiar with, and then Claude, this new thing that I had to learn all over again, because the way that they organize their interface, the way that they name things, it's a little different from ChatGPT. So I was fluent in speaking to AI, but still had to get used to this new platform and how it worked. So I had two things now, and I was testing it on the side, and then drama with the Anthropic and the US government went down, and everyone and their dog started migrating over to Claude. And of course, because I'm networking, I hear about all of this happening. And I thought, okay, well, I think that it makes sense for us to make the migration over. Also, because it's just really expensive to pay for multiple AI services. So part of it was a cost saving sort of thing where we had, I don't remember what the tier of package was that we had with ChatGPT, but some sort of pro or teams plan. We had everything shared underneath a business account. And it's not cheap when you tack on Claude and then you tack on all of these other things. So we ended up making the decision, we're just gonna let go of our paid subscription with ChatGPT. We could still use the free one for basic things if we ever need it, and then migrate everything over to Claude. So that was, it wasn't an instantaneous decision. It was, again, something that happened over a few weeks. I had to test it, I had to get familiar with it, and then after I felt comfortable, and of course with all of the other things happening in the outside world, I ended up saying, okay, yeah, let's just make the migration over, we can let go of ChatGPT.
When the government thing happened, that's when I switched over as well. Like I was using free Claude and
Mm,
paid ChatGPT.
mm.
And when the government thing happened, I'm like, I'm switching over to paid Claude, and now I use free ChatGPT. For you, transitioning over to Claude, experimenting with any other AI tool, was that irritation or frustration fact that you had to learn a new tool? Or could it also be a bit deeper where you feel like, you probably were losing your creative edge as a designer if you started indulging in
Mm.
AI a bit too much?
That's an interesting question, and I'll have to provide context before I answer this, because when it comes to creating things, At least specifically for me, I kind of have two buckets in which I do it. One of those buckets is design, which is a way that I give back to people. Design for me is actually a problem solving tool that I use to support other people. Art, on the other hand, this other bucket, is something that's completely different from that. It's still creative, but instead of giving to other people, I actually use it to recharge my own battery. It's kind of like a way of giving back to myself, where it's Rachel gets to finally have her alone time at the end of a long day and just draw whatever she feels like. There's no problems to solve anymore. It's just whatever Rachel's excited about or interested in, or maybe she had a bad day and she needs to let everything out. It's more self-expressive, and it's a way for me to give back to myself. And so what's interesting is the way that I use AI, it never touches the art bucket, because art is not about the end product for me. It's about the process of just me enjoying the work itself, rather than I'm looking to achieve this masterpiece that I'm going to post and get a million followers with. Like that's not my objective at all. Art is a private thing for me, almost like self therapy, rather than what a lot of other people use it for. And that's just like a personal thing for me. For design, however, design, it, even though there is a level of artistry with it, I'm not as attached. The most important thing for me is that what I create with design is that it supports my clients and I'm able to achieve the impact that I'm looking to make in this area. So I'm not as attached to how that gets done. Of course, I need to make sure I steer clear of stepping on anyone's toes legally with like trademark and intellectual property. I want to make sure I do things right. But I'm not opposed to finding smarter ways to get it done. So, with that frame in mind, I actually started implementing AI into my business, honestly, without feeling threatened, because I understood that this is just a tool that allows me to focus on the parts that actually really require my energy. And I'm very acutely aware of this because I'm basically the solo day-to-day operator of my business, and there are a lot of areas where my energy just leaks. And it's a lot of the manual stuff that my business partner and I are working really hard to systematize and automate and streamline, so Rachel doesn't have to spend time manually updating things. Why don't we just do things faster? So the way that we implemented AI was just in that, with that headspace, to try to find ways where, okay, well, where are areas that my energy is leaking? Oh, like call notes. After every single conversation, I used to manually type down notes based on what my faulty memory could remember, probably recording completely inaccurate details, taking all of that time. And even though, mind you, I type fast, like I type really, really fast, and it still took a lot more time than I would have liked. And so with the help of AI and like the AI recorders that we have, and now they basically help with updating your notes according to certain formats. It saves me so much time on that side. Another thing that I ended up using AI for is that I would incorporate it into the ideating phase of the creative work that I do for my clients, where I would use it to help me with doing research into the competitive landscape, just to make sure that what I'm creating actually helps my clients stand out. I use it to compile the information that the client has given me. So it takes all of the call recordings, the conversations, all of the assets that they share with me, and it just helps organize, right? Like, because I could do it manually, but if I were to be honest, it's a lot of grunt work. I just need it to organize everything in a way that's easy for me to look at, and then based on those I could set the creative direction. So it just helps with streamlining a lot of those clunky parts of the process. But honestly, from experience, and I've tried this, if I could, I would love to get AI to help with the visual ideating too, just so that I can pick and then tweak the finalized design. It is not there yet. I'm a designer and I use designer language to give instruction to the AI, and it still does not freaking get it. Like, AI to this day does not know what a logo type is. I would describe it, I would give it examples. I would be like, here's an example of the logo type, and using design language, break it down into the elements. And I'd be like, please help me create something similar for this client, and then set a whole bunch of parameters. Nothing. It's absolute shit. Like, I can't say more to how frustrated that I've been and how much more time I wasted trying to get AI to do certain parts of my job that naturally it's just still faster and more accurate for me as the human to do it. So I don't feel threatened simply because there are still some things that even I can't get AI to replace for me with my own job. So in a good and a bad way, there's still need for me, but in very specific areas of my business. And so I kind of just treat AI as like my personal assistant, where it would help do a bunch of the grunt work or make my job easier so I can focus on making like high level executive decisions, such as creative direction setting, talking to clients, like the a lot of the stuff that requires a little bit more of the human touch or human cognition to steer. It just allows me to focus more of my energy in those areas.
That is so interesting because when ChatGPT had just come out and we got to
Mm,
know that we could build custom GPTs, I tried to
yes.
build a golden ratio logo GPT. Like it did ask a few questions. I gave it a template that it needs to follow, etc.,
Mm,
etc. But the icons were so bad. It just looked like it picked it out from Icon Finder or some other website, and it's just superimposed the
so
golden
bad.
ratio spiral on it, and it's like, here you go. It's like, what the hell are you doing, man?
It's
It was terrible.
wild. It's wild. Like what I find, and I'm not saying AI can't improve, it's just not there yet. The way the cognition, it still takes things very literally. And I find that there are some aspects, especially for humans, that they it still can't comprehend. Like you can program AI to understand emotion. That's how it's able to respond to us when we speak to it a certain way, right? Like, but it doesn't actually feel, at least as far as the research has described. And so oftentimes when it comes to design, it's the art of translating words into visuals, and there's a certain limitation where a lot of times when I talk to clients, you're working with the feeling, right? Where they would be like, can you have it be like part badass but then also part sophisticated? Can you have, and they use these words, but when you think about it, everyone has a different association with what these words mean and what they look like. There's a bajillion different ways you can communicate those things visually. The choices are just infinite, and you cannot be able to tell the AI, I want, like, you're basically like naming certain attributes that it still can't get completely right. Even if you say, I want like a black paint swoosh that's fatter on one end and tapered in the other, angled exactly at 45 degrees with a little bit of swoop at the tail. Even if you describe that, it won't be able to really get it right. And that's one of a bajillion elements. So I'm just kind of painting the picture to help describe how I understand it's difficult for the AI to be able to comprehend what we're asking for, because oftentimes when it comes to ideating, and this is me speaking to the creative process itself, the best logos and ideas, it actually comes when I just kind of throw a bunch of things around, and it's like a puzzle, right? You kind of turn things around. Does it fit this way? Nope. Does it fit this way? Does it fit that way? And when you turn things around and you try it, you discover things, and I call them like happy little accidents, where you accidentally move something and you're like, oh my god, that looks so good, like that's the one. You can't, until you have that happen, the AI can't do that, because you have to describe exactly what you're looking for. So you see that weird fallacy that's happening. Like you can, that's why you can't create as effectively for certain things within the AI based on certain built-in limitations. So just to speak to what you said, yeah, there's a reason why that happened.
For your note takers, I'm a little curious about which note takers you use.
Yes, so I used to just use Fathom, and what's good is that Fathom has a free plan. What I really liked about it, I'll start with that first. What I liked is that it basically sits into your calls kind of like as its own participant, and it records both the video and the audio, and it gives you a transcript afterwards. That's what I really like, because it kind of did all of those things. And then after the fact, because I have some important client meetings where I remembered in that moment the client said a thing, and I made a note like, oh, go back to this point in the conversation, and then I could go and fill out the rest of my notes there. What Fathom is good for is afterwards you go back into their platform, and then you could actually search a certain point in the transcript. So I would just type in like what my client said, the exact words, and then I would be able, it would scroll down to that point in the transcript. I would click on it, and then it would also scrub to that point in the video, and then it would just play and start from there. So it makes it easy for me to search specific points based on just like a few words strung together, and I'd be able to really easily fill in the note taking gaps. The one thing that I didn't like is that it always felt weird to have a bot sitting in the room, and sometimes it's okay for like formal conversations where it's like me and my client and we both want a copy of the recording, but for just for my own note taking purposes, if I'm just meeting someone like casual coffee chat, we don't need a freaking robot to sit in, partially because the moment someone knows that the call is being recorded, they're just not acting themselves. They make it, they show up as if it's like an interview where I'm expecting something, and I don't want that. So I had been on the lookout for alternatives where I could still record the conversation just for my own note taking purposes so I can remember what we freaking talked about, but without creating a situation where the other person felt weird or intimidated. I just wanted it so that we could have a natural conversation. So at first, I actually used ChatGPT's audio recording option. I don't remember what it's called, but you basically like hit the microphone button and it records the audio on your computer, and it was fantastic. The main issue with this is that it records the conversation, but it doesn't give you access to the transcripts. Even if you ask ChatGPT directly afterwards, you'd be able to ask it like certain questions about the conversation, but you can't actually access the transcript. And I have tried. I ask it, please share the transcript with me, and it would be like, go to here in these settings. It's not, those things don't exist. There is no way you can actually extract the actual transcript from ChatGPT, and it's locked within that specific chat that you have with it. So that obviously was a big problem that I had with it, because sometimes I'm looking for very specific like wording, and ChatGPT will always freaking paraphrase things. Even if you tell it not to, it just doesn't give it to you straight. And so that was one of the issues I had with it. And then of course with the migration to Claude, the one resistance that I had to moving away from ChatGPT is that I was using it to record my calls. So before we happily made the migration over to paid Claude and then just going back to the free plan with ChatGPT, I had to get my business partner to find an alternative so that we could replace what I was using before. So we ended up finding this honestly amazing note-taking platform called Granola, and I feel like a lot of people use it too, where it does a similar function. It just records the audio. I'm actually using it right now so then I could have notes from our conversation and make it easier for me to create a promo post sharing about it afterwards. But it basically records the audio, so it records it from your end and then it records it from my end. So whatever like the input and output, it basically records that and it puts it into its platform. You do have access to the transcript, and honestly, the feature that I like the most about it, outside of the fact that it's not a bot that hangs out inside of our calls, is the fact that you can create custom templates that you can format to your exact needs. So I have my CRM and database is in Notion, and I have a specific way of doing my notes. I have certain fields, and I have a certain way of formatting the notes that I take. I actually create custom templates inside Granola to match that exact format for every single one of my call types. And it uses the AI to basically take the transcript and then write those notes according to that exact format. So then after every call, I kid you not, I used to spend at least like 15 to 30 minutes just typing down the notes and then maybe another 10 minutes taking action on follow up items. now, and over time, I've had to tweak the templates, of course, just to refine it. After every call, 30 seconds, copy, paste, finish everything, move on to the next thing. It's made my life so much easier, and it also removes the stress for me needing to remember all of the details, so I could just be present for the conversation and enjoy the time I have with the person, instead of like needing to write down, oh shit, what did they say, and worry about not being able to write things down fast enough. So in this way, even though it is AI, it's actually allowed me to be more present with the conversations and with my connections, rather than what I was doing before, frantically trying to write everything down and just not being present. So I actually, I would say Granola is amazing. I would recommend it to anybody. Not paid, obviously, to say this, but it's been fantastic for my business.
My question here is, and I obviously love this about you, all had that moment when AI tries to copy our voice. Like, we
Mm.
see a lot of AI slop even on LinkedIn, but you have a very distinct, like I said, what's up personality on LinkedIn. So, what are for you the dead giveaways in a draft that scream, this has not been humanized yet?
I say everything with the preface of, I'm not saying that it's bad to use AI in your content creation, but it is recommended to tailor it so then it feels more like you. I know that there are actually ways that you can really give proper instructions to the AI so then it really understands and mimics your voice. I haven't used them yet, so full disclaimer on that. Like, I'm kind of going in with my limited understanding and seeing bad examples of what happens when people just kind of copy and paste straight from their AI into like their social media. I find that it's interesting because sometimes it's hard to tell until you actually talk to the person. And I say this because some people actually write in a very robotic voice. It's not that they mean to, but some people naturally just do. Sometimes it requires a level of understanding of who that person is, and the best way to gauge it is go search up if they've got podcast interviews, see if they did a speaking thing, or see if you could find a video of some sort where you could just listen to them talk, and then you kind of look at the way that they write, and if there's a clear disconnect, you could be like, oh, okay, like there might be something there. One of the most dead giveaways though is when you don't really, the content that somebody posts is mostly thought leadership, but there's no personal story or experience attached to it. Um, I often find that that's one of the clearest signs because it's very easy to generate thought leadership content. One of the fastest and probably most common ways that people use AI is they would be like, okay, I am a business coach for 6 to 7 figure entrepreneurs. I help them with XYZ. Here's a link to my website. Here are my content pillars. I want to post educational content, XYZ, whatever content pillars. Please generate 1 month's worth of posts for me that are going to go on LinkedIn. Like, a lot of people, they'll only just go to that extent, and then they'd kind of, maybe they'll go read through and they'll be like, oh yeah, this is like something that I would talk about. But then oftentimes I find that there's a human element that's missing in those posts. It's meant to it's basically like creating an ad that you're posting on organic social, but it's not like, it's different from having somebody actually write and share about a personal experience. That feeling's very different. It's more about projecting ideas, but it's usually very generic and really horribly written. But it's like projecting thought leadership so you can think that I'm important and I know my shit, but there's no actual like human touch that's a part of that post. And it's just, it goes down to a feeling thing. Sometimes people do a good job of writing it, but I think over time, I've talked to enough people to be able to get a sense of when something doesn't come from them. Like, literally right before this call, I was chatting with one of my friends through email, and they sent me a link to the website of one of her collaborators. So I was just checking it out, and what my first thought was, the moment I pulled up this website, I was like, this was done in AI. Like, I could actually tell, because and there's certain telltale signs, like the the text for buttons is often really small. There's a certain look to it. Like when something is made in Claude, it's got like it's like the pill shaped button with like a tiny green circle and tiny little clean font. There and there's certain telltale visual signs that it was created, but the biggest one is this person, they did upload their logo in the top left hand corner, and the style of the logo is completely different from everything else that's on the website. Like you could tell that they were built separately and without that sort of intention, and this is just speaking from a branding perspective, that those were not meant to be built as one cohesive unit. And the I just have to say, the font that they picked is so completely opposite to what they speak to, that it's like they picked this like really classy girl boss font when it's like an older white gentleman who's selling a tech solution. I just have to say, it's not, it doesn't do the job. It looks fantastic, but from a human experience standpoint, which AI might be missing, it's not able to gauge, oh, like this might not be the right situation to use this styling, because for humans it creates a certain impression, but it's not, obviously from a design standpoint it looks fantastic. So I literally have it, it's actually still on my other screen because I was looking at it just before this call, so it's fresh. But there are certain signs that indicate when something was made in AI, and you start to see more and more of it, which makes it easier. Actually, we're just training ourselves to be able to see and understand and then choose how you want to engage. That's the most important part. Like, what do you want to do now that you have this information and ability to distinguish between the two?
That's a very interesting take. And now I wonder if it's also a bit generational
Mm,
because, well, I'm now 42, so I have been working for a very long time.
yeah.
And the way that I used to get reprimanded if my emails or my responses used to be very casual. So I had to
Oh
really,
no.
really write in a very formal way. Um,
Mm,
to my bosses, to the clients, whoever I'm reaching out to. And so then
mm,
my regular emails started getting the same vibe. And now it's been only in recent years that I'm like beginning to let go of that and start being
yes.
creative. But now AI's
Yes.
come in and the pressure seems pretty excessive, because we were always told that, let the work speak for itself. You don't share
Mm,
your personal stories because it's like boasting or what you do, what you did right and what you do and stuff like that.
mm,
And now
yeah.
those are the stories that we need to bring forth and share with people.
Yes.
So it is
Yes.
very challenging, very challenging. The only way I got to know that I do have some stories is
Mm,
because Claude gave me a context sheet to tell me, okay, tell me about your life, about
mm,
this. And then I had to
yeah.
really think back, go into my
Mm,
childhood, write it down. And then it's like, girl, what you
yes.
want to do is so tied to everything you've done so far, you just don't know.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, exactly. And I wish that more people understood this. Like, what makes content powerful? It's not about the consistency, which I think a lot of people, they really push on the consistency. They're like, doesn't matter the quality of content, just show up, post 3 times a day. And I'm like, no, it doesn't matter if it's not quality, because people are going to get tired of seeing you. Just human psychology, right? It's like if I see you too often, I'm going to naturally engage less, because it's like the same thing. You see your friend every single day for a week. You're like, okay, I need a little bit of space from you. I love you to pieces, but like I need to be away for a little bit. It's the same psychology. It's one weird thing, and I don't actually know if it's just me. When I like scroll through my LinkedIn feed, just to stay up to date with all of people's updates, there are certain people that I know in my network who post a lot every single day. And it's not that their content isn't good, but I personally feel weird if I, like, they're the type of person who posts once every 3 hours. And if I like every single freaking post, that feels weird to me, feels kind of stalkerish. I'm sending across weird vibes. And even if I do want to support their content, there's this weird psychological thing that's like, I might like one or two posts from you, but if I see you so much, I just, even if it was like a great post, I just start to scroll past. And so I don't know if that's one of those weird things where, personally for me, I would prioritize, like, I would post maybe once or twice a week, just enough for people to know, hey, Rachel's alive. But I only share things that are genuinely happening, that are exciting, like real things that I really want to share with people, rather than the routine churn and burn content that a lot of people see. And to your point about the personal story thing, it's the most powerful when people actually know that what you're posting comes from you. People are following you to connect with you and build a relationship with you, right? Like, and I mean, if you're a thought leader, they might be following you to learn from you. But all of those, the most powerful thought leaders that I know, they always tie personal story together with the theories and ideas that they're presenting. Like, one of my favorite thought leaders is Brene Brown. She's actually known for a lot of her work in a topic that a lot of people are really shy about, right? Which is like authenticity, vulnerability, empathy, the things that people don't talk about in a professional setting. But because of what she does, and what makes it powerful, is she shares a lot of really personal stories, not just from herself, too, from other people, that really help you understand on a human level. Oh, yeah, like, I understand the concept now, but because it's done through the lens of storytelling. So there is strategy to it, actually. There's strategy to tying story together with a certain point or a certain something you're trying to achieve. But you do still need to do it tactfully, and it is best done when done honestly, so then you actually do still build the connection, right? It's like, well, if you're going to post it anyway, why don't you use this as an opportunity to connect with people, to share more about yourself? Like, that's what people follow you for anyway. So, hot take from Rachel, that's just my personal opinion, but that's from my experience of being on social media.
That's a very interesting take for me,
Mm,
especially because I am really struggling with the
mm,
kind of stories that I can share and that I want to
yeah.
share, because I'm building something around what's happened in my life and what's built
Mm,
up to this moment.
yeah.
But it's really hard to be that vulnerable, and it's like a battle every day. The AI, do you have any list of anti keywords that you banned it from ever using,
Hmm.
or do you just let it fly?
I just let it fly. I feel like whenever it uses something that I personally wouldn't use in writing, I sometimes give it feedback, but it's just faster for me to take that and adjust it. There are very few words that I don't use. Like, there's certain ways that I wouldn't say something, and sometimes I would give Claude feedback like, "Oh, hey, like, the way that for this specific sentence, can you please change it to this instead?" I give it an example, and I would tell it why the previous example didn't work. And then it would be able to, it's pretty smart, and it learns from the feedback. And so there aren't necessarily like a list of blacklisted words, also because I use all sorts of language. like and it doesn't, I mean, for example, like, it's not going to put swear words in a post. Like, I would put the swear words in because it just feels right, or I would substitute it. I know that the AI, it has its own guidelines that it's not allowed to cross, and it's programmed that way, and so I understand it. If you want unhinged, like, go to Grok, right? Like, Grok is the platform that you would use to all sorts of unhinged content. But because I also don't use AI as heavily when it comes to writing social posts specifically, like, I don't have as much of a concern for that. A lot of times where I use AI to support with my writing is with certain things, such as just putting together like a clean paragraph of a brand identity statement that I would be using to steer the design decisions I make for my clients, or just help me with touching up the copy. But I always tell it, here's all of the content that I want in this paragraph. Please arrange this in a way that makes sense. It has good grammar, for good flow. And sometimes, depending on the context, please make it sound like my client based on the way that they talk on their calls or whatever it is. So it's mostly like writing for business, but not for my own personal social media. So weirdly enough, I don't have a list of words that I tell it not to use. It's more like I would correct it when it phrases something in a weird way, and then I would tell it, here's what I want instead, and here's why the previous sentence felt weird. Can you please not do that again? And it's usually pretty good at following those instructions.
Surprisingly, Claude has actually started using swear words with me because I use a lot of swear words. And it's just
Nice.
my natural way of talking. So
Yeah.
I think it's seen a pattern in where I say swear words, but then I realize it's a swear word, and then I put like a star. And now when
Yeah.
it gives me swear words, it gives me with the stars.
That's
It's
so
hilarious.
weird. I'm gonna have to try that later. I'll keep you posted on how it goes.
Rachel, you beautifully framed it that ChatGPT is like this hello friend who says yes to everything, the one you want to party with, while Claude is the close, intelligent friend whom you can have a conversation with and who's not scared of pushing back, right? So, why does this kind of constructive pushback give you so much clarity than a tool that would just blindly massage your ego and follow your orders?
Well, I mean, the whole reason why I'm using AI is because I needed to spot my blind spots. If I knew exactly what I was looking for, I would honestly still Google search it. Like, if I know exactly what I'm researching, I know everything about it, and I just need quick, exact answers. I use AI to help me learn more about topics that I honestly don't know anything about. It's kind of like that fallacy of, because I don't know what I don't know the right questions to ask, and I don't know if I'm missing something. I use AI to do broad searches to help me with my research in learning about topics that I have zero knowledge about. I can safely admit that I don't know anything about, and then I can ask the AI to help spot me in those areas. And so I found that, at least from my experience of using ChatGPT, I would do my best to still equip it and tell it, hey, I'm learning more about this area of expertise. I don't know anything about it. Can you please give me a high level XYZ of what I need to know about this based on what I'm trying to achieve, right? Like super high level, but it would give me something. And then I would go down the rabbit hole, and then I would find out probably like 10 prompts in that it missed something critical that I should have known. And then I would ask it, I'm like, why didn't you tell me about this? I needed to know everything that I needed to know before going into this rabbit hole. And it would say something along the lines of, you didn't include it in your prompt. And I was like, that's why I'm asking you, because I don't know what I don't know. Please tell me everything. And I would just get mad at it, right? So I had that experience multiple times with ChatGPT. Oftentimes it comes up when I am trying to troubleshoot some tech issues, like something broke on my website. And because I don't know how to code only on a light level, I would take a screenshot and I would ask it questions, and it would give me some solution that it kind of works. But, from a tech perspective, there's ways that you could do things fast and clean rather than like clunky. Both still get the job done, but there's certain ways. So it would give me the clunky solution, whereas there was an easy fix that it completely overlooked, didn't mention for whatever reason. It chose not to tell me. And I would just get mad at it. So that was my experience with ChatGPT. Thankfully, like Claude is a little bit better, where I've actually, for some things, I still default to using Google search, to be honest. Like there are some things where the AI does not have the most up to date information on some things, especially when it comes to tech issues. So I actually default to using Google search because, like, let's say I'm troubleshooting an issue with my TV speaker system, and the company's website has the most up-to-date information on the product versus the AI, which might be running on some outdated or generic advice for all of the different products from that company. And so I use Google search for a when I'm looking for something super duper duper specific. I would use it for broad searches. And what I appreciate about Claude is that it acts more as that intelligible thinking partner. And I think I made a point of also including in my Claude project instructions that the context in which I'm asking questions in certain specific threads is because I'm doing research in areas that I am not knowledgeable about. So I especially request for it to have a section where it also includes things that I didn't explicitly ask me about, but might be helpful for me given the context of why I'm searching. So I just went ahead. I got tired of repeating myself, is what happened. I just went ahead and I'm like, all right, Claude, I'm just going to tell you, like, in every single situation in this specific project, please help spot me because this is the reason why I am using you. So yeah, it's it's exhaustive sometimes repeating yourself over and over again. I find that Claude is better at helping you spot everything and also pushing back on some things that you might have going in where you had an inaccurate assumption or you are going in a direction that's not good for you based on its programming. Like, it'll actually tell you. So I find that it's more helpful overall when it comes to being that thinking partner or personal assistant.
How has your definition of a designer's role shifted now that the research can be automated and it's made things a little bit easier for you?
Yes. So I feel that, and this is contrary to what a lot of designers might think, where they feel very, very threatened by the incorporation of AI. I see these as a tool that designers can use to do their job faster. If anything, we might be able to help more people if more designers adopted these tools, because it still requires a designer's ability to translate between what the client is looking for and then giving instructions to the AI and still needing to make adjustments and curate the final result. Like, I don't think we've gotten to that point where you could go straight from client to end result. The clients don't know how. You still need the designer and the expertise that's required to help translate between clients' needs and things they don't even say. You just kind of have to understand exactly what they're trying to communicate, translate that into creative direction, and then use that direction and then translate it into technical language that you would give to the AI to execute. And then you would still have to have the ability to spot the things that it outputs. Does it align with the brand standards? Does it comply with what the client is looking to achieve? What are some things, even just from a human perspective, the AI, it might not know that it spit out something that doesn't work for other people, right? Like, it's not a person at the end of the day. We as people can feel when a design decision that was made was off, just like the example that I made with that website that used a font that felt very inappropriate for the type of brand that it was. So certain things, it looks great from a design perspective, 10 out of 10, looks beautiful. Complete mismatch from what is actually trying to be communicated. You still need a designer to go in and make those adjustments, tweak it, right? Like, you still need to do quality control before you ship the damn product. And so I could see designers being that in between middle person. I don't think it'll really go away. And the designers that don't adopt AI in some way, shape, or form into their work, they end up getting things out a lot slower, and they might end up in a bad position where they fall behind other competitors who are adopting these tools, getting work done faster and better and at a higher quality or standard. That's what I'm afraid of. And it's just like the introduction of computers. Back then, design was all done manually. You would just draw things on a piece of paper, right? Like, and then you would send it to the printer. Like, everything was done so manually. When things moved on to the computer and suddenly there was like design software, Microsoft Paint, like tiny little things, I'd imagine at that time I was just a kid, and so I wasn't a part of that shift. I grew up with computers, but for the people, designers who went through that shift, I'd imagine that it would feel very similar. They're like, oh my gosh, my job is being replaced. But no, it just means you get to do it faster and more effectively on the computer. And the best part is there's an undo button now. So if you make a mistake, don't worry. We can go back. There's other versions. And so I still imagine that at every point in history, when there was a shift that happened in the way that we do things and in a way that's supportive and makes things go faster, there is a hesitation to lean in because we're worried that we get replaced. In reality, I think it just means that we get to do better work faster, rather than doing things the slow manual way. So that's my opinion. My creative friends might disagree with me on that, but this is just for design, like design for business purposes. Art is something completely separate from that.
Coming from a generation when computers had just started to come about in schools and stuff, I
Yeah.
totally understand and get with you. Like, I totally back you on this.
Mm,
Anytime there's been a technological advancement or something new comes up, people have panicked every single time. It's not the
yep.
first time. It's just we are so adaptive that people will say no, but sooner or later they're going to have to get with it. um,
Yeah.
and it depends if they want to do it a little bit or they really want to integrate it as part of their lives. That's on them, but people will have to use it. And people, we didn't have these phones. We had those Nokia phones or the Blackberry phones, and that also came after a really long time after the dial-in phones, right? So
Yes.
everything is an evolution. We adapt, and I think people need to stop panicking and being scared about AI. I think the future is very exciting. We just need to get with
Yes.
it.
We do. And I feel like it's something that it becomes fun when you get over your fear of being replaced, because I understand where that fear is. I think that fear goes away when you understand where your place is and where AI's place is. We can coexist and work together to achieve the end goal. There is no level of replacing, maybe just the parts that you don't like to do that are really clunky. Like, and I think that once people understand that, then it's so much easier to lean in. Like, you could let go of your pride and ego. Don't worry, this robot's not replacing you. If anything, it allows you to focus on the parts of your work that are the most important and that require the most attention from you. It's actually beneficial in that area. And so after doing that reframe, even for myself, I find that, like, yeah, I feel completely not threatened. If anything, I'm more excited to learn more about these tools, because the question I always have going in is like, how can this allow me to support my clients in a better way, right? Like, I kind of go in from that perspective. And so my ego isn't really attached to that. If anything, it helps because I'm like, oh yes, I get to like support more people, right? I get to create more impact. That's the thing that's exciting for me. I'm not, honestly, not really attached to the way that things get done, as long as I create something that helps the clients and they get to make the impact in the world that they want to be making.
Guys, what Rachel's journey shows us is that the real danger of AI isn't that the robots are coming to steal our creative jobs. The real danger is a decision that we take on when we accept generic, watered down versions of our voice just because it's fast. Authenticity isn't about running away from technology, it's about having the confidence to find a tool that pushes back on your thinking so you can step deeper into your own reality. If you're currently staring at your backlog, stuck on a big decision, or realizing you've been optimizing a system that's already calcified, take a page out of Rachel's book. Stop trying to be perfect, embrace the friction, and own your weird. Before we completely sign off, Rachel, for everyone listening who wants to stop watering themselves down and connect with you or find Neogenesis, where is the best place for them to get in touch?
Absolutely. You can find me on Instagram or LinkedIn. My name, it is a little generic. It's Rachel Lee. Or you could search me up by my handle. I think that's easier, is Rachel T.Y. Lee. Those are my, fun fact, initials of my middle name, just so it makes it easier to search me up. Or you could just hit up my website, which is neogenesis.me. Not .com, .me. That's my website.
Huge thanks to Rachel for keeping it completely real with us today. Before the path hardens, before the choice is made, stopping decision death in the high stakes trade. Thank you for tuning in to the AI Momentum podcast. We'll see you in the next episode.